Hey everyone, Mark Stephen Pooler here, the Global Profile Builder. Today I am really excited to come on and have a conversation and welcome my new columnist for MSP News Global. So I am super excited. I had a dream the beginning of the year. I was already doing PR and media coverage for my clients. I wanted to create my own global platform to spotlight businesses and amazing people and their success through my own global media publishing platform. I have a movement and I really want to build MSP News Global so globally with amazing people. So I am so fortunate to be making my movement a reality. So not only is it going to be me contributing to my amazing platform, I now have some columnists that are joining MSP News Global. It's going to take it to the next level, and what a superstar I have, who is my first columnist, who is going to be sharing so much value and wisdom to MSP News Global. Who is it? I know you're wondering. It's the amazing Raimo, a super successful artist, a super successful radio host, whose radio show got viewers and listeners of millions worldwide. So without further ado, I am super excited to welcome Raimo. I'm just going to bring her into the broadcast. Hey Hilary, welcome. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you today. How are you?
Hi, Mark. I'm doing wonderful, and I'm very excited about this new adventure. I'm very happy to be here.
I am really happy that you're part of the MSP News Global movement. You're my first columnist. I also have another one that I will be introducing next week, who is a good friend of yours, actually. So I'm really super excited for how things are moving with this global platform, Hilary. So firstly, can you share with everyone that's watching, Hilary, who is Hilary Raimo? What do you do, Hilary?
What do I do? That's such a big question, you know, and you have a lot of time.
We have plenty of time.
Well, you know, who am I? Well, I'm a woman who has been exploring the world for a very long time, and part of that adventure has included starting my own radio program in 2005 on upstate New York's terrestrial radio AM program here. And it kind of took a life of its own and became something that I wasn't quite expecting. I was just going with the flow when I started my show. And over the years, it became something much bigger than I expected. I moved from terrestrial radio to online radio in 2008, and then I did several short productions and other companies. So for radio, it has been sort of a career for me, and I considered myself an alternative radio host. And what does that mean? It means I'm not a mainstream media person. It means that I produce content based on alternative perspectives, alternative opinions, and alternative theories, which right now is a really big deal because we're watching a tightening, a calling in of the herd, if you will. We're watching media content, internet content be censored across the board in many places that haven't been so censored before. So having an alternative opinion or alternative story or another side of things is something that's been very important to me since day one of my radio career. I'm also an author. I've written 3 books over the course of my career, and I've done a lot of other wonderful things along the way, and I consider it all part of my journey. I'm also an artist, as you mentioned. I started putting my artwork out there publicly about 4 years ago, and I've curated shows. I've been a president of an organization, and right now I'm currently the second vice president of a national art organization, which is new, so it's a new adventure that I'm also on with them. I'm hoping to bring a voice of fresh air to your platform, Mark, because I think having a news platform right now is so refreshing, but it's also dangerous. And there's some elements of unpredictability in that, because you're not always following the narrative, which is a great thing. And I think people really need to be brought back to a form of journalism that it gives both sides of the story, but doesn't biasly lead you into a way of thinking. It's sort of like what's happening now. We're watching that, especially here in the United States with our elections just a few weeks away. And so it's important to me to bring my background, my professional background. I have corporate training background in my history as well. I've also been in real estate and insurance. I've been a licensed New York State practitioner since 2010, and I bring a lot to the table. And I hope that what I can do is find a wonderful formula for bringing a column to the people that will bring a freedom of thought and a freedom of perspective and give both sides of stories that we're missing. And I'm hoping to do that. So I have quite a big goal with this, and I hope I can live up to it.
So we will talk more about your column a little bit later, which we really want to hear about. I want to just dig a little bit deeper about your radio show. This year, Hilary, has been a crazy year for everyone. Social media has gone really, really crazy. Censorship has gone really, really crazy. Now, you do bring something that may push a few people's buttons, but get people thinking. But it always comes from a place of the heart, doesn't it, Hilary? It's always got that positive aspect to it, but it can tread on people's toes. But there's no better time than now to be showing two sides of the story. Would you agree with me there?
Absolutely. In fact, I think it's not only, it's so long overdue, because something has happened in our media. Something has changed the way that it works, or perhaps we've just never quite seen it this bad before. Maybe we've never noticed it's been so biased before, because we were always playing, at least here in the United States. I can only talk for where I am. I don't know how it is where you are, but I do watch some international movements. But for me, living in the United States and being a citizen here, it's been particularly obvious, especially in the Trump administration for the last 4 years, just how militarized and propagandized our media has become. You can almost predict what they're going to say according to what's happening, because, for a long time I was sharing alternative links on my social media platforms and bringing people to different places, if not my shows, maybe other colleagues' shows, and offering up different information on a variety of topics, many of which were considered conspiracy theories 10, 20, 15 years ago, have been proven to be true now. So, I have watched the label of conspiracy theory be turned into a weapon, something to label people by. If you have any kind of questioning of the government narrative, you are labeled perhaps a conspiracy theorist. And this kind of goes back to my years as a radio host, when we were all talking about different things. And yes, it was conspiratorial mostly. However, you have to be able to talk about these things, because in some senses, these conspiracy theories have been proven to be conspiracy fact. So where do you draw the line as far as what you're willing to look into or believe when you're being told what to believe all the time, and you're being told what's true, instead of being given both sides of a story to be able to make up your own mind? We're not being given that opportunity anymore. We're being told what is true. We're being told what to believe. Our national mainstream news outlets I've watched, and I've only shared those national mainstream news links ever since a certain period of time, because what was starting to happen with the whole fake news movement was that if you even remotely shared a link from a non-mainstream source, you were completely labeled a fake news spreader and a fake news disinformationer. So what I've done is I've kind of made a list over the last 4 years especially, not because I'm biased to one administration or another, or I don't like this person or that person, but because I felt like I was being manipulated with what I was watching. And I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of people who feel they're being manipulated with the information that they have a right to know. And, you know, that manipulation doesn't need to be there necessarily. But unfortunately, our mainstream informational outlets have become so tied to the national narrative, to what the official story is. It's kind of like 9/11. We all know 9/11, no matter where you live. 9/11 happened, and there was an official narrative that came out. 6 people with box cutters brought these planes down and attacked America, and America had to go retaliate. And, you know, we're still in that war with Afghanistan. And so things just don't sort of add up. And so researchers, independent researchers, started to really look into the story, and they started to come up with things that just didn't make sense. And it's sort of the same storyline that we're dealing with now. And the minute something doesn't make sense, you want to go into it and look a little more, because your curiosity's been triggered and there's something intuitively inside you that knows something's not right. So the more you look, the more you dig, the more you investigate, you start to understand that the official story doesn't really add up. And so you have all these other theories that pop up, and people have the right to explore those theories and to look and to make up their own mind. We are not children. We do not need to be hand-led through a storyline or a narrative and told to leave certain things alone. We have a right to be able to look through information and make up our own minds, because we are discerning adults. And to me, that's a fundamental, foundational thing. It's like, if you lose that, how much of your humanity do you really lose? So there's a bigger price to pay if you stop questioning things. Another perfect example of that is the Q phenomenon that we've been watching. I've been very skeptical of the whole Q thing since it came out, because I have watched some of my colleagues, some of people I've known, some people I've done several shows with, have their entire platforms just taken off social media, taken down, limited, censored. And what they were bringing to the table was really just what I just talked about, the ability to be able to look at different storylines, different theories. Well, maybe it could be more associated with this, and being able to open up people's psyche and their mind and consciousness, and being able to lead them through something that might wake them up. Not necessarily wake them up. I don't like to say that, because I believe everybody's awake to where they need to be, right? We're all on our own path. We're all doing what we need to do. And so I respect that for everybody. I think wherever you're at, bravo, congratulations, thank you for being here. And your path will continue, and you'll continue to grow and change. So information has become militarized and propagandized, especially here in the States. We don't hear about other countries. We don't really know what other countries are doing. We've sort of been cut off from the world, in a sense, where we only get told certain things. It's kind of like North Korea or China, where the contained country is so contained that any leak of information into that is a danger to the government. And we don't want to reach that point here, guys. We don't want to be told what to believe, what's true, what's this. We can be told something, given something, and then discern it ourselves. And for me, that's what it means to be American, is that we're here, we have all this access to all of this information, and we have the intelligence to be able to navigate that information for ourselves. But journalism has changed drastically in just a few short years, and we are watching that systematically being taken away. And I just can't sit here and not do anything about it. I have children, someday I'll have grandchildren, someday I'll have my progeny down the line, and I have to do that for my very own family, if anything else, but also to preserve the truth and to preserve the ability to be able to have an opinion and make up your own mind. So when we talked about doing the column, I said, well, opinion piece would be great, and how rebellious, because to have an opinion right now is such a rebellious thing. You know, I've been watching people that I've known for a long time, even in professional situations, turn their entire worldview around to only being about facts. And if you can't have facts, then you just have to dismiss the rest of it. And it just is bizarre to me, because these are people that used to talk about intuition, which can't be factually proven. It's a gut feeling, and gut feelings matter, right? So we have to be very, very careful where we're headed. And I see something going on, not only nationally, but globally. And I've been watching this for a very long time, and I'm very educated on the realities of the world, and also the realities of conspiracy, platforms, information, thinking, the psychology behind conspiracy theory. And so I'm hoping to bring all of that to the mix and be able to sort it out and give people options as far as, well, you know, you don't have to be stuck in this container. There is a way out. And usually the way out is a question, is a cue, right? So we've been kind of brainwashed in this NLP sort of thing with the Q phenomenon. Q also is the first letter in question, questioning. So it's like a subliminal brainwashing thing where you don't question, you don't follow Q, you don't do this, you don't do that. But Q's platform was never taken down, which I always thought was strange. So here was this giant momentum phenomena happening where people were jumping on the bandwagon with Q's intuitive, predictive type psychic-like drops, right? And some of them didn't come true. Not all of them have come true. So I'm quite fascinated by how the Q phenomena has elevated itself to such extraordinary levels that it's made mainstream news. I think finally it was taken down. There were certain parts of the platform taken down, and it's become sort of this thing to use against people. And because of the Q phenomena here in the States, the whole entire movement has been labeled sort of a domestic terrorist group. Can you imagine being labeled a domestic terrorist because you have a belief system that you should be free to understand and believe and explore? But if you're a Q follower, you might be a domestic terrorist. It's going into a direction that, for me, leads to the ultimate muzzle on truth in any online platform, because online isn't going away. If anything, the pandemic has made it stronger and has made it more necessary to use. So we're going to be online more. We're going to be exposed to more information. We're going to be taken away from nature more. We're going to be taken away from actual physical human connection more. And yet at the same time, those people who control the internet are reining in the ability to have choice. If you go on to DuckDuckGo and you search something on DuckDuckGo versus Google, there is a tremendous difference in search results. And yet, even in just search results, you are only accessing approximately 4 to 5% of total information available on the internet. Most people don't realize that. They just Google something, they take the search results for what there is. We're losing the ability to go pick up a book or several books and read through and refine down the information. We just, hey Siri, hey Alexa, hey Google, and our brains are changing. This is the first time in history we have ever been this exposed to this much access to information. And the creators may have not seen or had the foresight to foresee the eventual changes in humanity that we're watching now. Suicide in boys and girls ages 10 to 15, I believe, is up almost 190%. don't quote me on those stats, but I was just watching a program where they were doing a breakdown. It's called Social Dilemma. If you haven't had a chance to watch that, I highly encourage you.
I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah, so they were doing, they did an interesting diagram where they compared kids going through the first generations who's really been only exposed to what we have now, doesn't know life before the internet. So I have a strong passion to talk about these things because I can see a bigger picture with them. I can see a bigger consequence down the road. And I realized quickly that maybe not everybody has the ability to see it. Not everybody cares necessarily. So that's why it's my job to write about it and to bring it to readers, because it's important and we really have to start paying attention to it, or we're going to atrophy something very, very important in the human makeup. And if we allow that to happen, you go down the road 100 years, it's a very big question as to what we're going to be looking like and doing as a world. So here I am, Mark, and I'm excited about it. And my radio career has led me all into these little eddies. And over the time that I've been doing it, it has really exposed to me a lot of things I wasn't expecting to see, and I can't unsee them. And once you can't unsee them, then you're connecting dots in a different way than what most people do. Most people will maybe scroll through their news feed, go look at their friend's page, see something triggering on social media and react to it. But there's more to it than that. And that's what I'm hoping to really discuss and get into the real girth of who we are as a species, what we have the potential to be versus what we are being, and where we're headed, and the choices and the responsibility and the accountability that we have to consider in order to be parents, business owners, leadership people. I mean, there's so much changing right now. It's almost like take your pick of what you want to talk about. And I'm excited to get into it because it's time.
I am so looking forward to your column, Hilary, and I'm really excited. It's bringing something different to the table to what I'm bringing to the table. I love the idea of an opinion piece. Going back to what you just said, I agree totally that we shouldn't just have one truth that we have to believe, because everyone's truth is different, and just because it's coming from a mainstream source, we should have other alternatives and not be censored. I'm not big on censorship, as long as it's not really damaging and dangerous. I think free speech and censorship is really, really important, that we don't lose our voices and our opinions. So I'm really, really excited about what you're going to bring to the column. I'm just going to take a little commercial break now. Once we come back from the break, I'm going to be chatting to Hilary all about her radio show, who she has interviewed, and then we'll discuss the topics of Hilary's column and what we all have to look forward to. So we will be back in just a few seconds. Welcome back, Hilary. We have the wonderful Hilary Raimo. We have just been talking about mainstream media, how it's all being censored, how we all have the opportunity and choice to make a decision on what we actually choose to believe. And I think that's so, so important. Now, Hilary, you have interviewed some legends on your radio show. Can you share a little bit about that, please?
Well, sure I can. During my time on the air, we were experiencing sort of a renaissance of information, and we had access to, like I was explaining before the break, we had access to all these different thought places, these different theories and these possibilities that may have been instead of what we thought, right? Or what we were told. So we had a renaissance in thought, and we had a renaissance in information. And it became very clear to me early on that the genre of alternative media could easily be influenced by disinformation. And I realized this probably back around 2007, 2008. It was right around the time that Facebook was becoming more popular and coming on the scene. So social media was relatively new. And when I joined social media in the very beginning, it was much different than what it is now. And the reach was much different than what it is now. And the whole cosmology of social media was different than what it is now. So what does that mean? Well, it means I've watched the whole transition of all of it. And through this period of time, there were certain people who were certain leaders in these extraordinary times. And so I became interestingly, passionate about getting them on the air to talk to them. And some of those movers and shakers had to do with all kinds of different topics. In fact, what I did was I wrote a book in 2018, where I went back through all of my radio content for all that time. And I chose 20 conversations that I considered to be, I loved all my guests. So it was a very hard thing to pick and choose what I would consider the best shows. But what I did was I wanted to document what I considered the best breakthrough thinkers that I could think of, that I had actually had conversations with. So some of those people include David Icke, some of Dr. Stephen Greer. There were Lynn Andrews was in there. There was all this collection of people where I felt like these conversations were not only changing in the times that it represented. It was like a time capsule of sort, but it brought to the reader an ability to read the conversations instead of listen to them, so they could actually stop and digest, because some of the information that was coming out of my shows was very, very intense. And sometimes I would get readers or listeners would write to me and say, I listened to this show and oh my gosh, my whole world has changed. My mind has changed. My consciousness is connected in different ways. And so I knew I was onto something. Well, for example, one of my favorite guests over the years was a gentleman named Chun Rosenkrantz, who I've had the honor of meeting in person. And this gentleman had an extraordinary experience in jail. And he was going through something being in jail, and a friend of his was mailing him photocopied Harry Potter books. And of course, you couldn't send an actual book to the jail, but you could send photocopies. So she would send him several chapters at a time, and this book got him through that very difficult time. And when he came out, he started a nonprofit organization called I'll Be There Project. And what he started to do was to literally go around New York City and help homeless people by giving them care packages, depending on what we were going through. If it was winter time, handing out hats and gloves and coats, and sort of documenting his journey. And it was such an inspirational story to me that I knew I was his first interview. He had never done any interviews before. And I had so much pride in that. I felt so honored to be able to be the first one to interview him on his story, his incredible story. And it's stories like this that would help people shift their thinking from perhaps judging someone that had been in jail, thinking they're just completely a waste of society. No fixing that person, right? Well, look at this success story. You have somebody who's gone through something very challenging and difficult, and yet has come out on the other side an extraordinary, compassionate, loving person who has redeemed himself and comes out on the other side wanting to help the world, wanting to make the world a better place. Well, I can't think of much better conversation than that. So he was the last conversation in my book. And my book, The Hillary Raimo Transcripts, which you can find on lulu.com, had a great impact on people who actually got through it, because the progression of the conversations from chapter 1 to 20 was very intentionally laid out so that it would take the reader from one set of information to another, to another, to another. But it also had a way of weaving a kind of story of the times. So the book isn't just a book of transcripts of radio shows I've done. It's an actual adventure through the early 2000s to about 2016. So it holds a very special energy to it. And these conversations that I've had with these people, some of them I became very good friends with. For example, Dr. Carol Rosen. She was Dr. Werner von Braun's assistant for 40 years, and he was considered the father of rocketry. Some argued that he came from Germany at the end of World War II and started our American rocketry program, and he was talking about going to Mars 50 years ago. And it was very extraordinary to be on her team. She was putting together a peace in space treaty program that solicited world leaders to sign an agreement not to put weapons in space, weapons meaning space to earth weapons. And I worked with her for 2 years. The project had a lot of great intention. We did get a lot of work out there, but I don't think leaders really wanted to agree to no weapons in space. And now we have a space force here in the United States. Fast forward to 2020. And you have to wonder what's going on up there, because we really don't know. NASA became a private company, which didn't have to disclose any of their payloads anymore. Right? So you don't really know what they're sending up there, and they don't have to tell you. So for all of this time, and we now have 800 or so internet satellites that just got put up there, and there's some questionable technology that may have been used in some of the wildfires that we've seen in the western United States. Some people have captured photographs with laser beams coming down. The dustification of some of the homes that have been burned down is really interesting if you examine some of that. Dr. Judy Wood is somebody I did a couple shows with around the 9/11. An extraordinarily credible woman with degree after degree after specialty after specialty. And she was the first one on the platform to say, hey guys, the dust at the 9/11 site doesn't add up to what caused the fire. And so when she broke it all down in my show, and I read her extraordinary book, which she had to publish out of the country, by the way, because no publishers would touch it here. And it's very expensive to buy, but it's worth every penny, because what she does is an extraordinary breakdown of how the buildings fell, the dust, and how the burn marks were left, that they just simply don't add up to what a typical fire should have been from planes hitting way up there. So that's an example too of an extraordinary conversation that came about because of an event that people were starting to question. Conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory were starting to come out after it. And some immediately jumped on her to attack her, to bring her down and discredit her. And I watched a character assassination attempt like you would not believe on this woman. And so sometimes that just makes me a little more skeptical of why the character assassination stuff is happening. And so I'll, instead of jumping on a side or picking a side and going after her, I just kind of stand back and go, why? Why are they so anxious to bring her down? Well, I've had the same perspective with Trump. Why is there such a massive, massive attempt to bring him down? He was a businessman before he came into presidency. We all wanted something different. He went on multiple radio shows speaking to crowds on things that were being said in certain radio shows and alternative media. He was kind of following the narrative that was being spoke about on Alex Jones's popular show. Back then, Alex Jones was a very popular radio host. He had a tremendous audience. And, you know, he went on there to be interviewed as a candidate, which has actually caught my attention because no presidential candidate ever has come on to any alternative media show to do any kind of interview ever. And believe me, I've tried. They didn't come on my show. They haven't come on many other shows. It's been very interesting, but he did go on Alex Jones. And within the 4 years of his administration, Alex Jones was taken down. Roger Stone, who booked Donald Trump on Alex Jones's show, they had charges pressed again. He was dismissed and released by Donald Trump towards the end of it. So this drama, all this drama is going on, right? And so these conversations are really important and they can really change things. And so it's been something that's just been ingrained in me since I started radio. I have a very unique and different perspective than most people, and I'm very aware of that. So when I make a statement or make a comment or put something out, usually the first thing that happens is people come back and say, oh my God, where is she getting this from? But if you sit down and have a 15-minute conversation with me and remember who I am and what I've been exposed to, it's not really that far-fetched, right? So I have an invested interest in bringing truth to the surface because I've been a truth seeker. I left the alternative media movement a few years into it because I felt like there was too much convoluted attacking going on and there was disinformation coming into the scene. And some people weren't fact checking or source checking. They would just regurgitate a story over and over and over and over and put it out to all these listeners. And I felt that that was dishonest, and I felt that that wasn't standing in integrity, and I didn't want to be part of a movement that was jumping on to the next big thing. And then some of these people who were bringing the information out, authors, researchers, were starting to feel almost like celebrities to me, like they were being put on some kind of celebratory platform and being able to be the experts. And if they didn't agree, then nobody else should agree. And I thought, that wasn't that just like what we were trying to avoid? You know, it's like, we're not here to put a Hollywood in an alternative genre. We're not here to have celebrity experts or by popular vote, whoever has the most followers or this or that is the one who's most credible. So I wrote my introduction to my last written book, which is my third one. And I said, I left this movement because I've become so disgusted with some of my colleagues who have just kind of turned on each other and then start pointing fingers at each other. And it was kind of being destroyed from within. So I stepped out. And when I stepped out, I started to go into my artwork and move my energies into different avenues, different ways of expressing and manifesting. And I would do a guest spot here and there, and I might do a podcast here and there. I might put together something. I did a short run on KCAA, which was an NBC News affiliated station in Los Angeles. I did about a 6-month run. So I made sure I used the 6 months to pop out some good information and some good shows and get people in there to talk about things that were relevant now. I love radio. I think it's great. It's a beautiful way to use your voice and to bring people together and talk to audiences. I like it better than TV. I like it better than video. But, you know, things change and times change. And sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zones and do things differently. So all of this has sort of led to a way of navigating consciousness, understanding how we're connected. And that very simple thing can be a bigger thing for business, relationships, acts of power, acts of manifesting. So there's things that I can speak to of it based in that. So that's what I do, if that makes any sense.
Hilary, you have so much of a great point of view from different perspectives. So you'll give one side, you'll give the other, and let other people make that decision. The fact that you've interviewed David Icke as well, for me, that is really, really amazing. So if you can get an interview with him into the column, that would be a real big high five from me as well. I'd love to have him on the platform, because he has been censored a lot as well, which I love watching him. Some of his things I don't believe, but other things have turned out true when 10, 15 years ago people were laughing at him. So you just have so many different topics to bring to the table, real different perspective than what I'm bringing. So I am really looking forward to your column at mspnewsglobal.com. I've really enjoyed a conversation with you today, Hilary. Before we leave the conversation today, what is Hilary Raimo bringing to mspnewsglobal.com column? What can people expect?
Well, you can expect the unexpected. How's that? I promise to bring interesting, questioning, deep thinking beauty to your platform. And the way that I plan on doing that is probably not what most people think. So I'm excited, and I'm not going to give too much more away than that. And I can't put myself in a box, but I can promise you that I will be bringing what people probably won't be expecting. And that it's a good thing. That can be a good thing. Right, Mark?
I am super excited. I really am honoured to have you on the platform. I'm really looking forward to your opinion piece, having you as a columnist. It's going to open up a whole new direction to MSP News Global. My last question for you, Hilary. Anyone watching today would like to connect with you. What is the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, the best way to connect with me right now is by email, believe it or not, because I'm in the process of revamping my website platforms. So you can just send me an email, hilaryraimo@gmail.com. That's it for now.
Thank you so much, Hilary, and I am so happy of our new partnership and your column, and I look forward to the journey together. So I will take you out of the broadcast a second, but do stay there, because I'll come and have a chat to you shortly, Hilary. Thank you everyone for watching. It's really exciting times for MSP News Global. Hilary Raimo is our first columnist. Next week I'm introducing our second columnist, and it's another amazing human being, entrepreneur, businesswoman, media guru. So I'm super thrilled that my movement for MSP News Global is coming alive. If you would like to contribute to MSP News Global, do go to www.mspnewsglobal.com and go to contribute. So that's it for now. Join me next week, where we will be welcoming our next columnist. And what an amazing first columnist, Hilary Raimo. Thank you everyone for watching. Until next time, goodbye. Bye for now.